Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the new episode of Ambassador's Lounge. आज हम एक बड़ा इम्पॉर्टेंट डिस्कस करना चाहते हैं टॉपिक. हमारे मीडिया में इसको बहुत कम कवरेज मिली, लेकिन इट्स अ वेरी इम्पॉर्टेंट टॉपिक फ्रॉम द पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ऑफ द सिक्योरिटी स्टेबिलिटी इन द मिडल ईस्ट. On 27-28 March, foreign ministers of Egypt, UAE, Morocco, and US, they met in Negev, this Israeli city, and they discussed various issues confronting the region. Now, these talks, which they call it as summit, the Negev Summit, it's a multi-level cooperation and encompassing cooperation in scientific field, in tourism, economy, industry, technology, and security. But the most important aspect of this was cooperation against Iran. This meeting gained again additional significance because of the situation in Ukraine, with Americans more involved in Europe and in Asia Pacific. How will this meeting or this development affect the security and stability of the region is yet to be determined. I have a panel here which will discuss the implication of these talks in the region and on us as well. So to my left, let me start by welcoming Ambassador Amjad Sher. This would be his first program with us. He was our ambassador in Cambodia. Amjad, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And sitting next to Amjad is Ambassador Riaz Bukhari. Well, he's a known figure in this Ambassador's Lounge, and Ambassador Tanveer Khaskheli. My first question, Amjad, let me start with you, is you have, we were discussing this thing before, you have been reading about it and covered it a lot. Could you run us through the events which led to the holding of this Negev Summit?
Thank you, Imran, for your introduction. It's a matter of honor for me to be here in this August meeting and to brief you about this topic, which has remained dormant for quite some time. Anyway, मैं ये कहूँगा कि इसकी शुरुआत पिछले साल 2020 में हुई थी कि जब पहली दफ़ा UAE, मोरक्को, बहरीन, सूडान के फॉरेन मिनिस्टर्स की मीटिंग यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका में इज़राइल के साथ हुई थी. वहाँ से इसकी बुनियाद रखी गई कि इज़राइल के ताल्लुक़ात गल्फ़ कंट्रीज़ के साथ, अरब स्टेट्स के साथ एक नई लाइन पे, एक नई नहज के साथ होनी चाहिए. और वहाँ से फिर वो आहिस्ता आहिस्ता ये मीटिंग्स, अगरचे मीडिया में इसको काफ़ी कवरेज नहीं मिला, लेकिन ये मीटिंग होती रही और आखिरी मीटिंग मार्च के तीसरे हफ्ते में शर्म अल शेख इजिप्ट में हुई थी, जिसमें इज़राइल, UAE और इजिप्ट की सरबराहों की मीटिंग हुई थी. और उसमें उन्होंने फिर डिसाइड किया कि जी हम इस तरह के एक फ़ोरम बनाएं कि जिसके बुनियाद पे हम अरब कंट्रीज़ में और इज़राइल के साथ ताल्लुक़ात को एक नए रुख दे दें. और ये उसकी बुनियाद पे ये मीटिंग 27 और 28 मार्च को हुई, जिसमें UAE, बहरीन, मोरक्को, इजिप्ट की मीटिंग हुई. ये 4 अरब स्टेट्स थी और इज़राइल था और यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका के सेक्रेटरी ऑफ स्टेट एंटनी ब्लिंकन भी थे उसमें. और उसमें उन्होंने 6 इश्यूज़ पे
उस पे आते हैं हमसे. लेकिन फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, apparently Sudan was also invited, it refused. Jordan was also invited, it refused. क्या वजह है कि उन्होंने रिफ्यूज़ल की?
सूडान की तो अपनी सूरत हाल थी, क्योंकि वहाँ पर एक फ़ौजी हुकूमत थी.
लेकिन सूडान के उसी वक्त जब ये मीटिंग हो रही थी, सूडान के जो हेड थे वो ही वॉज सिटिंग इन विद मिस्टर अब्बास.
वो मेरे ख़्याल में इनके लिए ये बहुत जल्दी था कि इन्होंने अचानक ही मीटिंग बुला ली कि जब मार्च के तीसरे हफ्ते में इजिप्ट में ये मुलाकात हुई और फिर उन्होंने 4-5 दिन के बाद ये मीटिंग बुला ली. तो उनके पास रिएक्शन टाइम बहुत कम था कि इसको कैसे रिएक्ट करे। जॉर्डन ने भी के जो किंग थे उन्होंने उन्हीं दिनों में बजाय इसके कि वो इस मीटिंग को अटेंड करते उन्होंने रिफ्यूज़ नहीं किया, लेकिन उन्होंने रिग्रेट किया कि इस मौके पे उनके साथ ये मीटिंग करना मुनासिब नहीं है।
राइट। रियाज, आपकी तरफ मैं आता हूँ। ये अमजद ने ये बस क्विक रन डाउन। आप ये मुझे बताएं कि ये जो मीटिंग हुई है इसका कोई सिग्निफिकेंस है? व्हाई दिस मीटिंग, व्हाट प्रॉम्प्टेड दिस थिंग? कोई रीजनल चीज़ें थी, सो व्हाट इज़ द सिग्निफिकेंस ऑफ दिस मीटिंग फॉर द रीजन इन पर्टिकुलर?
Thank you, Imran. For that we have to see the current situation in the Middle East and the crisis in Ukraine, the U.S. role, in all the crises as well as in the situation in the Middle East, Iran's nuclear issue, the negotiations which are currently undergoing amongst major powers to renegotiate the JCPOA, which is almost concluded as per media reports. And the GCC countries, particularly Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Bahrain, they have serious concerns about renegotiating the JCPOA because they have not been involved or they have not been consulted. And they feel threatened that if Iran is allowed to go further in pursuit of its nuclear program, they will be feeling threatened.
But Iran, sorry to interrupt, but as per this deal, Iran will not continue with its nuclear program.
As you are right, but according to some reports, during the last 4 years, Iran has achieved certain level of enrichment, which can be used at a later stage to pursue its nuclear program. So the Arab states, particularly the GCC countries, they feel a bit threatened, and they are looking for new security arrangements with the outside powers. The US, perhaps due to its domestic issues, due to its political issues, is not coming up to provide a security umbrella to the GCC states. So these countries have explored other options. One of them is the regional option. And Israel is playing a very important role, as Amjad has just stated about the Abraham Accords, recognition of Israel as an independent state, as a sovereign state by Muslim countries in the Middle East. They have, that step has changed the security scenario of the region. So I think these meetings, the two meetings which took place in the last week of last month, they have made in a way the Arab states a bit dependent on Israel in certain ways, particularly with regard to the future security arrangements of the Middle East.
Thank you. तनवीर, आपकी तरफ ये जो मीटिंग थी, what are its particular goals keeping in view the Arab world? How do the Arabs view this meeting?
Thank you, Imran. I think what has happened here, if we look at the Arab organizations, the Arab League and GCC, and out of all those memberships, only four of these countries came for the meeting. 4 in a way, 2 from Gulf and 1 Morocco, which is almost at the end of the North Africa. It appears to be, as per the media reports also, and some of the local newspapers from Middle East, that it's kind of giving Israel a legitimacy in the region. That is one factor. Though they are talking of few other subjects they'll be talking about, but as pointed out by Riaz and Amjad, probably security is one of the reasons. And the whole focus seems to be on Iran, which right now it's not very prominent as such, because Iran is busy with its own nuclear deal, which is almost, as per the reports, at the end fag end of the things. And if you see, initially, it's like there's a saying that sleeping with the enemy. You know, there was a time that Israel was the enemy of the Arab states and all, and gradually, after the accords which Amjad mentioned, Abraham, these accords signed in 2020, and out of those 4 or 5 countries, 2 were here. From the neighborhood, probably Jordan was invited and they didn't come. But it was more of a giving, I think, and as the senior officials are saying that this is going to be a regular feature now on annual basis. And it will probably will be on rotation basis. That means all these countries which are participating.
What are the goals from keeping in with the Arab world? What
Well,
do the Arabs perceive? Why do they want this meeting?
No, I have not seen any severe reaction from the other Arab countries as such. Though if you look at it, Palestinians are very clear about it, so they are not happy with this.
They call it conference of the evil.
Yeah, they are very clear about it. Saudis have not come up as such, but after this thing,
But Saudis apparently have the blessing for this conference because they allowed Bahrain. Bahrain participated in this conference.
The Secretary of State, I think, before and after, visited Saudi Arabia. He visited Algiers and all these countries in the region. But we have to see exactly what reaction, which I probably has not seen any such reaction. So it's too early right now. It's only 1 week. And we have to, I think, wait and see what exactly comes out. But right now, I think Israel has got a legitimacy in this concept that some Arab countries are, and they're very happy about it, that the unity of the Arab world has been broken from that point of view.
Amjad, do you think this summit has any significance for the Arabs? What do they stand to achieve?
हाँ, एक तो इज़राइल के साथ पिछले 50 साल से ज़्यादा अरब कंट्रीज़ का ये जो एक एनिमिकल रिलेशनशिप रहा है, एक इस समिट के या मीटिंग से वो इस नतीजे पे इससे पहले ये पहुँचे हैं कि इतनी लंबी दुश्मनी से इनको कोई फ़ायदा नहीं है, तो हम क्यों ना एक अच्छे नेबर्स की तरह रहें। दूसरी बात ये है कि उनको अरब कंट्रीज़ को, ख़ासकर गल्फ़ कंट्रीज़ को, ईरान से ये थ्रेट बहुत अरसे से चला आ रहा है, तो वो इज़राइल के साथ दोस्ताना ताल्लुक़ात बनाने से और उनसे डिफेंस के रिलेटेड और सिक्योरिटी रिलेटेड इश्यूज़ डिस्कस करके वो एक तरह से अपने सिक्योरिटी को भी इंश्योर कराना चाहते थे। तीसरी बात ये है कि आपस में अगर इज़राइल के साथ इनके ताल्लुक़ात अच्छे रहें तो इनके इकनॉमिक, एनर्जी, वाटर, टूरिज़म और इस तरह के दूसरे इश्यूज जो है ना वो बड़ी आसानी के साथ ये भी उस पर
उनसे कोऑपरेशन अदर फील्ड्स। इसमें एक चीज़ ये है, व्हाट इजराइल हैज़ ऑफर्ड इज़ दैट दे विल इंस्टॉल laser system for their joint air defense, for the joint air defense, to protect them from the projectiles and missiles coming from here and there, particularly from the Houthis. Now, this implies that if Israel installs this thing in UAE, for instance, it will have access to the Iranians, right? उनको पता होगा कि ईरान में क्या हो रहा है, वो ईरानी क्या चाहते हैं, सब कुछ. So एक तो ईरान को डायरेक्ट थ्रेट हो जाता है, and then this is becoming part of their internal defense.
इसका तो यही मतलब हुआ ना कि एक तो वो इज़राइलियों को खुला हाथ देंगे कि वो ईरानियन के जो सिस्टम है उसको या उनको ओवरसी करें। दूसरी ये कि यूएई या दूसरे गल्फ़ कंट्रीज़ ने फिर खुला हाथ दे दिया, अपनी सिक्योरिटी इज़राइल के हाथ में दे दी। जो अब इसका अरब कंट्रीज़ में अब अंदर से क्या रिएक्शन होगा ये अब टाइम विल कम। लेकिन ताज्जुब की बात ये है कि इंटरनेशनल मीडिया और मैं तो थोड़ा बहुत इसको कवरेज मिला, लेकिन पाकिस्तानी मीडिया में इसको कोई बहुत कम कवरेज मिला। हमने अपने तरफ से भी सोचना है कि
उस पे आते हैं।
मैं इसमें पहले एक चीज़ ऐड कर दूँ, ये सिक्योरिटी का काफ़ी बार जिक्र होगा, सिक्योरिटी ऑफ द जीसीसी कंट्रीज़। एक तो बड़ा यमन का जो इशू है उसमें प्रॉक्सी वार जिसके कहा जाता है, जो उसके पीछे ईरान है, ईरान के जो एक्सटेंडेड इन्फ्लुएंस है इन द रीजन, वो भी एक प्रॉब्लमेटिक है फॉर ऑल द प्लेयर्स इन दिस समिट और कॉन्फ्रेंस जो दोनों हुई हैं। तो ये मेरा ख्याल में जो कॉमन इंटरेस्ट है इज़राइल का और जीसीसी कंट्रीज़ या अरब कंट्रीज़ का, वो शायद ईरान ही है। ठीक, जो जीसीसी कंट्रीज़ हैं दे फील थ्रेटन्ड फ्रॉम ईरान, बट दे आर आल्सो टॉकिंग टू ईरान। सऊदी अरेबिया की निगोशिएशन होती रही हैं, यूएई के साथ विजिट एक्सचेंज हुए हैं, कतर के साथ विजिट्स एक्सचेंज हुए हैं, कुवैत के साथ विजिट्स एक्सचेंज हुए हैं। तो वो कोई ऐसी सूरत हाल नहीं है कि जहाँ वार लाइक सिचुएशन को ऐसी हो जो मजबूर हों कि ये जीसीसी कंट्रीज़ इजराइल के पास जाए। मैं ये समझता हूँ जो रिड्यूस्ड कमिटमेंट है ना यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स की in the in the Middle East, particularly the GCC countries, उसकी वजह से ये जो अब्राहम जो एकॉर्ड्स हुए, उसके बाद जो एक कोऑपरेशन का जो एक स्टेज आ रहा है इज़राइल का और जीसीसी कंट्रीज़ का। आप जैसे देखें कि यूएई में एक साल में 3 लाख से ज़्यादा जो है इज़राइलीज़ ने विज़िट किया है। एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर में कोऑपरेशन हो रहा है, उनका जो आईटी सेक्टर है उसमें उनका कोऑपरेशन बढ़ रहा है। इसी तरह एक चीज़ और है जो आपने भी जिक्र भी किया कि डिफेंस इक्विपमेंट, इज़राइल जो है रीजन में एक बहुत बड़ा आर्म्स मैन्युफैक्चरर एंड एक्सपोर्टर भी है और उसके जो इक्विपमेंट है वो बहुत डिपेंडेबल है और शायद वो कॉस्ट में भी कम है और एक रिलायबल सप्लायर भी है नेक्स्ट डोर। तो शायद उस वजह से भी जो हमारे जीसीसी कंट्रीज़ हैं वो इज़राइल के साथ अपने ताल्लुकात को ज़्यादा बढ़ा रहे हैं।
Excuse me, I'll just add one thing on this. We have been talking on the other side. There's one point I think which needs to be looked into, as I mentioned, over the Palestinians. The place this summit or meeting was held, these are all occupied areas.
Yeah.
And they're going ahead with further.
And it's the birthplace of their
Yes,
first...
yes. And they wanted to
He's
take
buried
them
there.
there.
Buried there.
Yes, for the wreath-laying ceremonies, which Israelis have never done while going to Egypt, to Jamal Nasser or whatever
Yeah,
it is.
absolutely correct.
So this is very important that they are, on the one
Very
hand,
symbolic, yeah.
cooperating, and it is more symbolic that they're doing it and telling the world, we don't care.
Okay, Riaz, you just said reduced role of US in the region. Of course, that's a fact. They are more interested in Asia Pacific.
And in Europe now, due to
Europe, obviously,
Ukraine.
the theater has shifted. But one must understand that I believe it's foreign policy objective of US, that is safety and security of Israel. Since Israel is involved in the whole process, in this dialogue, in these talks, everything, I think US interest will continue in the region. But this was just off the cuff. Now, what my question to you is, as a result of this, after Abraham Accords, we see that Pan-Arabism is on the decline. The causes which were dear to the Arabs, they are no longer dear. For instance, the Palestinian cause. So, are we seeing friction, division within the Arab world, or will all the Arabs fall in line? What will happen to the Palestinian issue?
When the Arab states start talking to Israel and start recognizing Israel as an entity, standing full recognition, that means you are compromising on your principle of OIC, principles of Arab League, principles of GCC. So whenever you take one step towards Israel, you are compromising all the resolutions which you have been adopting for the last 40, 45 years or 60 years. So I think the situation has changed, the ground realities have changed, and
what are the ground realities now?
Let's say,
what are the ground realities now?
The differences, and as I said, first the reduced commitment of United States to the Middle East, particularly protecting, I don't want to use the word regimes, but
So it means that for this thing they need to sacrifice the Palestinian cause for
this
which
is what they have
standing.
done. I mean, recently they have passed a resolution, unanimous resolution, by the Council of Foreign Ministers of OIC in Islamabad. And what they have done after that? Same countries who were sitting in Islamabad, extending full support to the resolutions on Palestine. And now they are talking to Israel because of their own security interests, because of their own long-term, I would say, interest, particularly in the technology field, in the agriculture, and in the security. And it has its implications for the region. One is you will just ignore the cause of Palestine. You have to compromise on that. Particularly, you see, if the reports which I have seen about these two meetings, there is no mention of Palestine, what they will do. Will they go for two-state resolution options or not? There is nothing. No talk about the basic rights, fundamental rights of Palestine. They are not talking about those. Now, they are only talking about their own interest, their own existence as an independent state. And from there, where they can get a reliable partner to supply them with arms at a much cheaper rate.
No, I don't know it's a cheaper rate, but that's at a supplier of arms, yes.
Yes, why not?
Absolutely correct. Okay, Amjad, let's come to the final round. Arabs ने तो अपना national interest uphold किया and they started talks with Israel. They stand to benefit, obviously. सऊदी अरेबिया के भी टॉक्स चल रहे हैं जो अभी नहीं, लेकिन सऊदी अरेबिया ने डिप्लोमेटिक रिलेशंस तो नहीं इस्टेब्लिश किए, ओमान ने नहीं किए, कुवैत ने नहीं किए, बट अकॉर्डिंग टू रिपोर्ट्स दे आर इन द ऑफिंग. ऑब्वियसली वो चाहेंगे कि इसमें इंक्रीज़ हो. नाउ व्हाट अबाउट पाकिस्तान? Our national interests, keeping in view these national interests, should we have some sort of relationship with Israel?
बात ये है कि हमारा शुरू से एक प्रिंसिपल स्टेटेड,
वो तो सबका प्रिंसिपल था, OIC का भी था, वो अरब लीग का भी था, सबका प्रिंसिपल यही था.
एक स्टेटेड पोजीशन हमारा यही है कि ऑक्यूपेशन ऑफ फॉरेन लैंड, द पीपल शुड बी गिवन द राइट ऑफ सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन. अगर इस फ़लस्तीन हम इज़राइल के साथ अरब कंट्रीज़ के इस रिलेशनशिप को अगर ये तस्लीम कर लिया जाए तो फिर इसके कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस ये होंगे और फॉल आउट ये होंगे कि कश्मीर को भी एज इट इज़ फिर कर लिया जाए, उसको भी फिर उसके फॉल आउट हमारे लिए वो होंगे. ये अहम. दूसरी बात ये है कि ये ताल्लुकात ये शुरुआत है, अब ये आगे आगे आहिस्ता जाएंगे. हमारे लिए आप देखो उनका सारा सबसे ज़्यादा फोकस ईरान पे है और वो इज़राइल को उन्होंने अब पुलिसमैन ऑफ द गल्फ़ बना दिया है और इज़राइल विल वर्क एज ए ब्रिज बिटवीन द गल्फ़ स्टेट्स एंड द यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका. अमेरिका जो है ना, दे आर नाउ हेविली इंगेज्ड इन एंड कमिटेड इन यूरोप, यूक्रेन की वजह से, रशिया की क्राइसिस की वजह से और पैसिफिक रीजन में. तो और फिर ऑब्वियसली वियतनाम और फ़िलीपींस का भी जो चाइना के साथ जो साउथ चाइना सी में जो सिचुएशन है, तो उसकी वजह से यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स अब इतना ज़्यादा फोकस नहीं कर पा रहा है मिडिल ईस्ट पे. उन्होंने ये रोल दे दिया है इज़राइल को और इज़राइल विल नाउ अडॉप्ट दैट रोल. तो हमारे लिए तो इसके कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस है और हमें बड़े एहतियात के साथ इस चीज़ को जो है ना देखना है कि हम कहाँ तक इसको वो देख रहे हैं. लेकिन ऑक्यूपेशन राइट ऑफ सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन हमारा शुरू से है और अब अगर हमने इस पे कंप्रोमाइज़ कर लिया पैलेस्टाइनियन की सिचुएशन
कश्मीर पे आप कह रहे हैं,
कश्मीर पे हमारा.
योर टेक ऑन दिस?
Well, I think as explained by Amjad, this is right now चूँकि हमने officially we have not given any statement, the Foreign Office has not issued anything because there is no direct impact as of now. We'll have to, I think, wait and see how the other Arab forums, the GCC and the OIC or other countries, if they come up with something, why few countries are moving in and if it is directly impacting.
इसमें OIC का तो ज़्यादा रोल नहीं है ना, ये तो
not the role.
Not
the role. What I mean to say is that all these countries are member of that. So
GCC countries,
all those countries,
Arab League,
Arab leagues and all those. So as such, then direct impact is not on Pakistan even for that matter.
Yes,
it is
it's
more.
not.
Because we are in a catch-22 because Iran is our immediate neighbor. If Iran is the focus of this whole activity, so we have to be very careful. And next is Saudi Arabia.
If Saudi Arabia recognizes Israel, then?
Well, I don't think what we'll do immediately or not because we have to see external and internal
There are news
factors.
that Saudi Arabia is interacting, there are talks taking place.
There's something, covert things are going on, I'm not sure about that. But we have to be careful the kind of public reaction within Pakistan. I think that is very important. We have to understand the political parties and the governments are very careful once we talked of Israel.
It's a sensitive issue.
Yeah, it is.
For
You know,
the people.
It's one of the countries where you still have on the passport that except Israel we can travel to the whole world. So it is a very important factor. It's not that simple. And similarly, the situation of Palestine versus Kashmir, that will be a major factor.
Yes.
मैं
You are very
तनवीर की कुछ बातें हैं.
आगे करूँगा.
एक तो हमें ये देखना होगा इस सारे जो प्रोसेस जो 79 से शुरू हुआ और अभी तक चल रहा है, एक्सटेंडिंग रिकग्निशन टू द स्टेट ऑफ इज़राइल, इस पे हमारी बड़ी स्ट्रॉन्ग पोजीशन रही है और अमजद ने और तनवीर ने बड़ा अच्छा आर्टिकुलेट किया है इसको. लेकिन जो अभी 2 मीटिंग्स हुई हैं इस पे ईरान का रिएक्शन क्या था?
Obviously, Iran contempt
बहुत
this.
नहीं, बड़ा इतना बड़ा स्ट्रॉन्ग रिएक्शन नहीं उन्होंने शो किया कहीं पर.
नहीं माइल्ड नहीं था उनका
नहीं,
reaction काफी
मुझे तो
strong.
इतना नहीं आया कि पीछे पड़ जाएं वो कि जी ये हो गया, ये चेंज आ गई.
तो आपके एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं कि ईरान जो है वो क्या करता है?
नहीं, क्योंकि दे आर आल्सो फॉलोइंग देयर ओन इंटरेस्ट. दे आर जस्ट वेटिंग द टाइम देन दे विल बी signing the renegotiating agreement. Maybe after that they will take a strong position. Then we should need to see what is happening in the region. आप देखें, Syrian President Assad was in UAE, Israeli President was in Ankara, ठीक है ना?
UAE में भी गए.
Turkish President was in UAE. So पिछले 20 साल से जो आपस के लड़ रहे थे, now they are meeting each other. सो एक नया सिक्योरिटी स्ट्रक्चर जो मैं समझता हूँ एक डेवलप हो रहा है, रीनिगोशिएट हो रहा है, एंड वी शुड वॉच इट आउट. वी शुड नॉट, हमने हमारे पास अपना डोमेस्टिक एजेंडा इतना हैवी है कि हम बाहर की तरफ देख नहीं रहे. तो हमें उस पर ज़रा फोकस करना चाहिए कि हमारे दोस्त जो ये तमाम नेगोशिएशन कर रहे हैं, इनकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग का हम पर क्या असर होगा, हमारी सिक्योरिटी रिलेशनशिप जो है GCC कंट्रीज़ के साथ उस पर क्या असर होगा, हमारी जो वहाँ इंगेजमेंट है, बड़ी एक्टिव इंगेजमेंट है हमारी, वो कितनी कम होगी या बढ़ जाएगी. मुझे तो लग रहा है कि वो आहिस्ता आहिस्ता कम होती जाएगी. तो इसी तरह हमारा वहाँ जो इन्फ्लुएंस है वो भी कम होता जाएगा. तो हमें ये तमाम चीज़ें बड़ी ठंडे मजाज के साथ इसका असेसमेंट एनालिसिस इसका करना होगा ताकि एक प्रैग्मेटिक पॉलिसी जो है वो हम उसको फॉलो कर सकें.
But is it in our interest to be final, yes or no?
देखिए जी, आई मीन यू हैव टू फॉलो योर इंटरेस्ट. मैं इस पे ज़्यादा नहीं जाऊँगा, लोग इमोशनल हो जाते हैं. इफ़ यू टॉक माई इंटरेस्ट, वाई नॉट? यू हैव टू प्रोटेक्ट योर इंटरेस्ट. इफ़ अरब्स आर लुकिंग इनटू दैट इशू एज एन अरब इशू, तो लेट देम डिसाइड. इफ़ दे आर एडवाइजिंग अस टू deal Kashmir as an issue between India and Pakistan and resolve it, then why not they resolve it? And we should follow our own interest. हम जब भी कोई बात करते हैं to talk to Israel तो फ़लस्तीनी भाई दरमियान में आ जाते हैं कि जी अगर आप ये करेंगे तो हमारा वो जो बारगेनिंग जो स्पेस है वो कम हो जाएगा. Now how long we should continue to extend support to them at a very heavy cost? हमारा इजराइल के साथ डायरेक्ट कोई प्रॉब्लम क्या है? वी शुड सी.
Yes, इसको just carrying it forward, we are a nuclear power, right? Why should we not? What prevents us from recognizing Israel or establishing a relationship with Israel? What prevents us from that?
I agree with you, but no doubt we are, I would say, only nuclear Muslim state. I will say that.
We
right?
are. Yes.
We are Muslim, and and we are a responsible state. We have our domestic constraints, right? If you talk about the policy on Israel, it starts even before creation of Pakistan, when Qaid-e-Azam, exchanging letters with the Mufti of Palestine, and so we have a history. But the thing is,
but that's past.
Yeah.
Things have changed. Ground realities are different now.
There was a time when we should have given a serious thought of having some sort of relationship with the state of Israel. That was in the 1990s. As someone has said that we have missed the bus, right? And still we should continue watching our interest through our friends, right? We have not,
just a second. Watching, continue. We have been continuously watching it, and we have not been able to reach a conclusion whether establishing a relationship or working relationship with Israel is in our benefit or not.
away, there is no consensus in our domestic politics on
Well,
Israel.
consensus is developed through developing a narrative.
We are not,
have we been able to develop a
our
narrative?
agenda, domestic agenda is full, so we
Has it
cannot
always
talk
been
about.
full? Has it always been full?
At this moment of time, we cannot talk about this issue. Let there be new elections whenever we have, and then we can start, developing a narrative on this issue, and then see how people react to that. So far, as I said, now we have our friends. They have direct relationship with the state of Israel. So we should follow and protect our interest through this mechanism vis-a-vis Israel.
Amjad, you want to say something?
Yes, both Palestine and Kashmir are on the UN Security Council resolutions agenda. Unless if Palestinian state issue of Palestine is not resolved through the UN Security Council resolution, same fate will be met by Kashmir.
तो Israeli Prime Minister ने कह दिया है कि for the time being any diplomatic negotiations on Palestine is off the table. So they don't want to have any negotiations for that.
So that means that then there is no need for the UN Security Council resolution to discuss these issues, and that means that all issues, disputes can be resolved by
If we talk about resolutions, we have not 1, 2, 3, many resolutions on the Middle East issue, Palestine issue.
It is on the
So
agenda.
I think if the Arabs have decided to take a pragmatic line on this issue, let's see and wait.
Very interesting word, pragmatic line. Tanveer, why can't we take this pragmatic line, or should we?
Do you think we have that kind of leadership in the country right now?
Let's end on that. Ladies and gentlemen, a very interesting debate on the current affairs or things that are happening in the region. Important thing is that the Americans are more interested now in Europe, in Asia Pacific, and that left a void which is now being filled with Israel. What are Pakistan's options? This has to be considered. Thank you for watching the show. Please subscribe to our channel and do give us your feedback how we can improve this. Thank you very much and good night.